it gives me great pleasure to have U's boss, Paul Barnes, on the show. Been a long time coming. Before tried to get it done at the beginning, but a few little hiccups, but we've got it now. First of all, Paul, an absolute pleasure having you on. How are you today, sir?
No, very well. I'm delighted to be here. Obviously, I know, there's probably lots we can discuss. I'm looking forward to obviously letting people have an insight. And yeah, it's been brilliant start to obviously the relationship with Hastings. So yeah, no, just nice to be here.
Thanks, Paul. I mean, I've got a few questions from a few fans that have bothered to post. I always want to strangle them. I put all this stuff out there for them to post to, and they don't. But there's a few respondents. Firstly, explain to us, like, taking over in that situation and literally having to create a whole team. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating slightly, but create a whole new side. How difficult was that?
Yeah, I think probably for maybe other managers that haven't been through as many challenging projects that I've been involved in, it probably is quite a big ask and is very overwhelming. I mean, I've got a good story and I could give you an insight in terms of how Stoney was after the first couple of weeks, because he was really getting stressed. So I think, the way that I always try to work is I'm personable. When I was obviously offered the opportunity to take the job, grabbed it with both hands. I know obviously great club, great support. Couldn't wait to get involved. So the first task for me was to make sure I spoke to every player who was, being inherited and a Hastings player from previous and had done the club obviously so well over the years, obviously helping with promotion and then obviously just missing out last year, but still having a great season, obviously in the East Prem. So the first task was introducing myself, letting them know where they stood, obviously letting them know the challenges, because I think as it was quite well known that, budget wise, it wasn't maybe going to be the same budget that we had last year. So there was going to be some tough conversations. But again, I mean, I say to everyone and anyone that knows me, I only deal in honest conversation. So it was easy conversations from my perspective. And you know what it's like, you want people to get a feel for you. Obviously explain me, Stoney, obviously working together, other staff potentially going to be with us. And then see where the players are at, because, I think sometimes people can get a little bit lost in the fact and think, oh yeah, football's the be all and end all. For part-time football, obviously, that we're involved in, there's also other kind of circumstances that will play a part in any decision making. So, work life, personal life, and then just seeing where people were at. So those were discussions we had. I think everybody that we spoke to, and we did speak to everybody, it was good conversation. Nobody, boys on it, we know a lot of lads chose to move on, but it wasn't with any kind of anger or there's no issue. Kind of, it was shaking hands on good terms, wishing them well. I think if anyone saw, obviously, after the game at Whitehawk, and there was obviously a lot of former Hastings players, it was friendly. Speaking to people. I mean, I even, the first message that I sent when I heard the news was to Jack Dixon, congratulating him on the birth of his newborn. So you don't do that if people leave on bad terms.
Yeah.
And again, I think you want people to know that what they've done, the time that they've given, what the commitment to the club, it means something. And even to somebody like me that's only just coming in to learn about the club, it's not just for me, it's for everybody that's gone before me, all the supporters that supported those players over the years and the relationships that they built, because I think that's important. So yeah, it was a challenging time, but one that I never kind of got daunted by and never got fazed by, because again, I've done it before. I mean, to give you the insight in the Stoney story, and it was quite funny. His boy Josh actually said it a few weeks into the season, speaking to him on one of our 101 calls throughout one day, probably. He actually kind of rang in a bit of a panic and was like, oh, so-and-so's moving on, so-and-so's moving, kind of we're left with 3 or 4. And he was like, bloody hell, we're not going to get a team together. And I remember, as if it was yesterday, saying, Stoney, it's not my first rodeo. I've been here before, mate, we'll be okay. Because again, I think, football is such a small, even though there's so many clubs and opportunities and, people will know many players, many managers, but on the flip side, it's a small community. Everybody knows everyone. So what I've always been confident in, and I'll stand by, in terms of people like myself and Stoney, we've built good reputations by being good people first and foremost. And then you add to the fact of very professional. You'd like to think that we're forward thinking, modern day kind of managers in the game. So that's always going to be attractive. I know my relationships with players have always been good. Again, even players that maybe have moved on, I've always left on good terms. So it wasn't too long before the phone starts ringing and players start saying, I'd love to come and play for the club. I know it's a great club, great support. So then all of a sudden you go from, oh, we've only got 3 or 4 to now we're saying, all right, who do we need and what do we need? Because we know how we want to play, who fits. Obviously, we can't take everybody. Also, again, budgetary issues. It's got to fit in line with what the club obviously financially has got to work with. So, the project started. And for me, yeah, no, it's enjoyable. I think a lot of people get stressed, but for me, I enjoy that, building something, and it's not just built on in terms of, I think we said at the fan forum, I'll come and play for us. You can get X amount of money paid to you per week. This is what we want to build. This is the culture we want to implement. This is what it means to the town. Do you align with our vision? Do you align with what we are as a club, the people that we are? And so knowing that, building relationships, and it's not as simple as, people will look at transfer deadline day. If you put in a bid and the player accepts, again, we don't work at that kind of level. From my perspective, I want to meet a player 2 or 3 times. I want to have a good few conversations on the phone. I want to show them. I mean, I'm a madman. I probably would have showed them a presentation online, and just shown them what we're doing and how we're building it. And then if they do say, yeah, you know what, I think we'd work well together, then you have another conversation, find out what they're about, see where they want to go this year, what their intentions are, and then you take it from there. So no, I think it was challenging, but in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, I know from a fan perspective, I mean, we've had quite a good 6-7 years of very settled squad with minimum changes. So I think what's happened, which we've noticed around a lot of clubs, there's been a lot of clubs that this has happened to. I mean, obviously, I know your old club Dulwich, that they're a almost completely different side to the side that was that went down. And I like what you said there about that people moving on. You respect what they've done and go with good blessing, which I think a few fans need to know that as well, just for the ones that are listening, that, they've done a good job, good luck to them. And now it's these new lads and they're going to go do a good job for us now.
Yeah, no, and you know what, Chris, and I'm happy to touch on it. And I say all the time, and, even previously at Dulwich, and I say all the time because what we'll continuously say, and I know some of the supporters that you'll be good friends with and have grown up, being diehard Hastings fans will know, because we've got to know them really well. We've had them even come in and give some talks to our team. Is as much as it probably will kill me, but football managers, football players will come and go. You know what I mean? But the fans and supporters, that's their club. You know what I mean? So in terms of, they're the most important people in any football club. They're the people that have been there since they were young. They're the people that will be there when they're very old. They're the people that will bring up the next generation to be supporters or players of the club. So if you don't embrace that, and if you don't acknowledge that, I think straight away you're on a hide into nothing, because you've already lost what is a key ingredient for a club like Hastings United.
Right, now we are recording. We were recording earlier, don't worry. But I just need to remember, Terry, I know you'll be listening. Terry Scott says hello. Paul, she loves you. She's always talking about you. Just thought I'd mention that. Terry Scott from Margate.
No, thank you. Terry, I know we said earlier as well, Terry's a great lady. I mean, I'm very lucky to meet her when I was at Margate. She still stays in contact with my family. My wife will stay in contact with her on social media. So no, Terry's a lovely lady, and I know she'll probably be listening, and I'll see her soon, no doubt. But hello to Terry, and hope her and her family are well.
Yeah. Margate, I thought Margate on a bit of a cup run at the moment. I'm not sure about the league. I did talk to her about the league. Well, just, I know we're going on a sidebar into Margate, but obviously lovely people at Margate. How do you see it? Do you see them staying up this year, or do you reckon they're struggling? What do you think?
I think they'll be fine. I know Reece, the manager, well. I know Ben, obviously the assistant, well. A few of the boys down there, they'll be fine. They've got a good manager who's just starting out, but great experience as a player. Good person. I really like Reece. I mean, people probably don't realise, but I think a lot of managers talk more than people think. Like, we'll share footage of oppositions and stuff. So it's no coincidence. I've spoken to Reece probably at least half a dozen times already this season. We will trade footage on opposition. They'll be fine. I mean, they've already put together a good group, and it shows with their cup run. Good,
because it's a lovely away day, that is. So So I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, skeptical coming in when things changed, because I was quite involved with the last. I'm personally me. I'm not talking for other fans here, Paul. Yeah, but particularly me, very passionate, but very kind of emotion. Should we say emotion led? Yeah, that's just, or naive. I don't know, or just sentimental. I don't know. But so with change, I'm not great, but I must say, since you come in, I felt that, you know, your connection with the fans has been very good, and I think you've been very respectful as well, and has given everyone time, which, I mean, I think needs to be commented on. And I tell you, you know, we've had some cracking results. I mean, how do you feel in the 8 games we're sitting 5th? I mean, I know we've had a few defeats that we may talk about in a bit, but like, we've also had some cracking wins, and I am in no way saying this is any point a negative at the moment, because I'm happy with. I'll take that at the start of the season. I'm very happy with where we are. I mean, how do you feel it's shaping up? I mean, obviously it's still a work in progress. I did see talk earlier at the beginning of the season that we were winning leagues and all this, and I did say to others, I said, no, we need to give this team a chance to settle in. Let's not get ridiculous. But I mean, what do you think, Paul? How do you feel it's going?
No, again, I think we did say it in the forum. I'll echo it. You know, any club, you know, that I get the privilege to manage, I want to be competitive. You know, but by nature, in terms of, I think it's easy to get carried away and say, oh yeah, we're going to win the league with this. I think the group we've put together is more than capable to be challenging at the top of the table. I think because we are still, and I think people have seen it recently, you're implementing a completely different style to maybe what people are used to, especially in non-league football. Even me, people will comment all the time and say to me, kind of, your approach is quite different. Some say good, some maybe a little bit other. But again, it goes back to that, into what you said about giving people time, being respectful. I think players, in my opinion, nowadays, they want someone that's going to be a man manager first and foremost. So someone that's willing to have conversation, not just scream and shout. Then somebody that they can believe in the ideas that he's trying to put in front of them and get them to go and deliver. So I think where you see where we started from in terms of a project with no one kind of in the squad, so where we're at now, you know, I'm big on perspective. I think life kind of throws enough at you, so getting carried away with football results at times, you know, maybe puts things into perspective, because there's far bigger things going on. But I think in terms of, if someone said to me at the beginning of the season, after 8 games, you'll be 5th, with some of the games that we had on paper, you know, 3 of the teams that come down, some tough away games, big local derby, 2nd game in. And then if they would have said, Barnsley, would you have taken 5th after 8 games? Oh, hell yeah. You know, of course, you know, and we even said, and I don't mind touching on it because we talk about the results, but it's easy to get carried away because, yeah, you think you've maybe dropped off from where you was at. But I also remind the boys, because we've set such a high standard, and I think the performance have been so good, maintaining that, you know, let's have it right, that if players were maintaining those standards consistently, they wouldn't be playing at our level.
Yeah, I was about,
you know what I mean? And again, if football was easy, everybody would do it. So you're always going to, you know, your peaks and troughs. So in terms of, there's going to be inconsistencies. It's just, the most important thing is to try and get back to a good standard and level. When you do drop off, I think, you know, we said after the game on Tuesday at Lewis that, you know, let's have it right. We know we were well off of the standards that we want to be at, and it wasn't a good performance and an account of ourselves. But perspective, we're still sitting above Lewis in the table, even though we just lost to them. We're right in the mix of that top group. And now it's a little bit of a kick up the backside and a wake-up call to say, you know what, yeah, you were doing well, but we weren't there. You've still got work to do. We've maybe still got some tweaking to do. But no, I think I'm really happy where we are. I do believe that if we can keep players fit, because our squad's going to be the issue for the whole year. I'll happily go on record saying that, because we might not have as many resources as other teams that are going to be expected to be in and around it, so they can carry a bigger squad. We can't carry a big squad with what we're working with. We're going to have to give youngsters a chance, which we have already, and they've been brilliant. So again, it's just maintaining fitness of players, and then when we do pick up injuries, which you're gonna, or we do hit those times of inconsistency, if players can step up and go and replace that player that's missing and make sure the standards stay high. So that's going to be the challenge, but no different from anybody else. But really pleased where we are. I do believe if we stay fit and we keep the players fit and the squad together, I think we could be there or thereabouts come the end of the season.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it shows you, as you say, we've had these up and down. Well, not all just a couple of downs recently, but some great highs. I mean, like just some of Femi's winners. I mean, ridiculous stuff. And obviously, you're bringing in young JJ, who was fantastic. Okay, I got Trevor Nell, who's actually runs a podcast called the Premier Non-League Podcast, and he always posts up on my Sussex by the Sea stuff. He asks, Paul, what attracted you to Hastings United, and what is the vision for the short and long term?
Great question, Trevor. I think
Clever Trevor.
Yeah, there you go. From my perspective, what attracted me to any club is the infrastructure. I think sometimes people get carried away. Again, I speak to managers and they'll say kind of, what do you look for? I think if a club's got a good infrastructure, you've always got a good chance because, again, I'm from a coaching background. So, developing players is what I've kind of always done. It's what I'm passionate about. But then having the opportunity to implement a style and kind of your own philosophy on the club that people can buy into. And I think it's great because you can then feed that with, obviously, your academy, your youth section. You can then have that interaction and build that sense of community like we've tried to do. Again, fan base, brilliant to know that you're coming into a club with a great fan base. And I think the potential for the club to be bigger, to go and play at a higher level. I think that's always important, and that's no disrespect to maybe some of the clubs that I've managed because, it's been my journey and it's been brilliant to be involved. But, if we're honest, there's some clubs there that you think they've probably been at their level. They're not going to grow anymore. Some clubs, and it is from a financial perspective, some clubs won't be able to grow because they might not get great crowds. Whereas, Hastings, great support, great infrastructure in terms of a club, good people, in terms of when I was offered the job, I knew obviously from reputation and experience of playing against Hastings, I've always gotten well with previous managers, new staff around the place, and it's the reason why I didn't obviously bring in a management team with me. I was happy to come on my own because I knew we had good people at the club. So when you've got those as key ingredients, you've always got a chance to be successful. And from my own kind of personal agenda, and people always looking at what do you want to get? I want to be successful. I want to get the club promoted. I want to take Hastings to the next level. And I think we've got the ability to do that. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. So I do think for the short term, it was about coming in, letting people know what our philosophy is, what our vision is as a management team. Then it's building a group that can go and put that into place, building the connection with the fans. I think people always get that one kind of lost because people just think it's about on the pitch. For me, it's far bigger than that. You've got to get right off the pitch as well. I think we've done that really well. So I would say from the short-term objectives, I think we're on track. For kind of the medium to long term, I think it's working with obviously new ownership coming in, making sure that we align in terms of where the club want to be going, where we want to be going, which at the moment, from all discussions that we've had, is completely aligned. Obviously, it's great that we've got people like, Dean and Ben White that have been heavily involved with the academy, know local football. And so, I mean, when you've got those things, I think you've got a real good chance. I do believe, people will want to, oh yeah, could it be this year? I'm not saying promotion's going to be this year. Obviously, we want it to be sooner rather than later. But I think if you're looking for the next 1 to 3 years, I think there's no reason why we can't be chasing that objective of becoming a National South club. And I think from kind of conversations with new ownership, that's the vision. So long term, we do want to be a National South club. I think the town deserves a National South League club because we've got everything in place.
Yeah, like that answer, Trev. Trev, I've got Trevor in my brain here, Paul. Good answer, Paul. Sorry, mate. Hang on. Let me just get the next question up. This is from Peter Thomas Edmonds, who's a Hastings fan. There's a few here. What is any updates or planned return for TC, Tom Chalmers, and where does Paul think he might fit in to our side?
So TC, when I first took over and we spoke to TC, it was expected of January of 24 after the op. Obviously, again, I've worked with players before. What you don't want to do is rush them back through their recovery and rehab. Tom's been brilliant in terms of his commitment, his dedication to the training. Sort of staff have been brilliant supporting him. I think, if I was to say December now is looking like a possibility, that would be latest. There is, I want to only whisper it because I don't want to put any pressure on Tom, because what we don't want him to do is break down.
Obviously, yeah.
If there was a possibility for November, it would make me a very happy man, because I know Tom has got great potential. He's very well liked. Players rate him. He's trained with us now for the last few weeks. He's got ability. He definitely fits into obviously our style, our philosophy. I think potential that Tom's got. I think playing group and ex-players have already said, if he probably didn't suffer the injury, it was probably one that might have been on Football League club's list. My job and our job as a staff is to try and get Tom back on those lists, because, his aspirations is to be a professional footballer. And I've got no doubt that once he gets fit and playing again, he will be. So he definitely fits within our style. He'll be playing once he's back fit. The sooner he's back fit, I think the better for everybody, because he gives us another top player.
Pete's got more. This one's, in what way do you feel the team struggled most at Dover after conceding 3 to what may be the weakest team in the NLS? All a bit harsh. Player quality, tactics, or level of fitness, or is there another reason?
I think, I'm never one to blame officials, but if you look the way the first 25 minutes went, where you can see the penalty that we felt was soft and have a man sent off, doesn't matter the level of opposition you're playing against. Playing with 10 men is always going to be tough. I think we still made a game of it. I think up until that point, because I felt the first 10 minutes we started really brightly. Yeah. If we were 1-0 up after the first 10 minutes, I don't think anyone batters an eyelid. And I honestly think if the decisions aren't made that are in the first half hour, it's a different game. I was proud of the players that kept going even with 10 men and made a game of it. I think, if you're talking about key moments, Freddie leg goes through and puts one just over the bar. On another day, that's free. Or when you take a replay and people are saying 10 men replay away at an LS side, it's not a bad result. But ultimately, I'd be lying if I didn't say going into that game I expected us to win. Because it's not being disrespectful to Mitch or Dover, but we felt where they were at in terms of struggling, where we were at, just on that kind of that crest of a wave. Yeah. We felt that it was one we'd go in and win. After the first 25 minutes or whatever it was, when Sam gets red card and you lose a penalty, it's a different ball game. But yeah, on another day, it's a different story. But yeah, disappointed with the fact of going out the FA Cup more than anything.
Well, to be honest, it says a lot about where we're at with. Because I was communicating with some Dover people, and they do like a podcast. And I was going to go on there, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And the reason why was because they were so down, they were convinced they were losing that game. They were like, and they were bricking it. And unfortunately, we couldn't win. But that shows a little bit about us as well. That actually they were really. And how well we were doing, or we are doing. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah. No, and I don't mind saying it publicly for people to hear and watch it back. And people might say, what's he caring about the opposition manager or another manager for? But I did say straight away, I had a chat with Mitch before the game. I had a chat with him straight after the game, went into his office, had a chat, and he said, obviously exactly the same for you. If you don't obviously get a man sent off, is a different game. I said, to be honest, Mitch, it's football. I said, what I do take a little bit of consolation from is I've been there in terms of Mitch's position when you're struggling. And, people try to kick you when you're down. I know Mitch has put a lot of work in and is very dedicated to his job. So as much as people might not want to hear it from a hater's perspective, from manager to manager, I said to Mitch after the game, if I'm going to lose and it's against anyone at the moment, I'm glad it's you, just because you deserve more time. You put a lot of hard work and effort into the club. Sometimes people don't know all the other aspects what goes on at the club. So, from the positive, I said to Mitch, I hope that maybe gives you guys a kickstart now. And it shows, because they went and got a great result at Bath the following week, which everyone would have let down for a big loss. So, it's, it was unfortunate against us, but at least from some kind of positive outlook on it, it helped Mitch. And I think it gives him more time, which he deserves.
Well, this is what I don't understand. Maybe it's just a one thing. I'm obviously an old geezer now then, because people look to sack people like immediately, like, the Dover fans were this before the Dover game. They're like screaming at this guy should go, and you think, hang on, how many games has he had? Like, how can you what remote? I don't know what world people live in. You know, like
Yeah, and you know what, Chris? I think, and I don't mind. I don't mind sharing it, and it's no disrespect to Dover. Obviously it's a great club. I know they do things obviously their own way, but I think people's on the flip side, because some supporters will say, "Oh, we should go." I think sometimes people don't stop to think. Well, sometimes it's better the devil you know, because who would you go and get? And I think sometimes, and you go back to asking me the question, what attracted me to Hastings? How many managers would be queuing up for a certain job? Because is it attractive? Has it got all the things that we talked about that I'm looking for in a club? So, you know, as much as people might say, "Oh, yeah, you should go," who's going to be lined up for the next one coming in? Because I mean, without being disrespectful, I don't think there'll be a long list of CVs getting thrown at that one.
well, I saw the Dover fans switching off now.
Yeah,
Are you listening to this, mate?
No, but sometimes I think sometimes people overlook those things,
Well,
and
they
it's
just
and it's very reactive.
sheep mentality. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Just okay. Right. He's got more questions. This is Pete. What's been the most pleasing part of managing Hastings United so far? Pete asked.
The most, I think, connecting with the people. You know, I think everyone knows the supporters that I spoke to. Myself and my family, to be fair, I've spent some really good quality time down in Hastings, trying to get a feel for the place, getting to know the people. And again, it goes back to the forum. And I remember speaking. I remember people where they were stood and sat for the forum. And I think before that, you come into it and you know, yeah, it's great town, really supports his club, but probably didn't understand the real dynamic of what the town is and who the people are. I think after that fans forum, it gave me a great understanding. So then when I spent more time, and I've spent more time down at the club and around the people, you understand, and it really resonates, because I think, like I said in the fans forum, I'm a working class lad that grew up on a council estate in South West London. Grew up in a single parent family, kind of everything, all my values, all my experience that was instilled into me comes from my working class background, which I wouldn't change for the world. So then when you start talking to the supporters and the people that make the club what it is, you've got so much in common. So then when you talk about, having an impact, whether it's getting a win or making people feel part of the team, making everyone know that they're together on this journey, for me, that's the most pleasing thing. So knowing that we've already made an impact and brought people together as a club, as a community, for me, that will always be the most valuable thing. So for me, I'm really proud of that so far, and we're going to get stronger.
All right, thanks for that. Right, what's your bit? This is Pete. Pete's bombarded us here with questions. Good man, Pete. What's your biggest challenge in the months ahead going to be, do you think?
I think, like I said earlier, I think squad depth is always going to be a tough one, because obviously resources, budget-wise, we've got to make sure it works and stays in line with what we are as a club. So I think that I would say a lot of managers will probably always be worried about other teams coming to get players. I like to think that the players we got, I don't think, unless it was a ridiculous offer of Football League club coming for somebody, I think that we've got a loyal group that are in this for the long run. So I just think it's going to be a case of keeping people fit, making sure that the squad depth allows us to then keep a certain standard. So I think that will be the biggest challenge, especially when there's games coming thick and fast, Saturday, Tuesday. So keeping players fit, injury free, need a bit of luck. So that will be the toughest challenge, I think.
Well, this one's out of date. What's up-to-date situation on Adam Lovett's injury? So that's out of date.
He's back.
No, he top player. Oh, he was a top player before. Top player.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Adam Lovett's impact. I mean, obviously bringing him back. I mean, we might maybe we talk budgets in a minute, but bringing him back. I mean, he's a top player. I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's come back. I mean, I don't know what magic you got there, Paul, but he's a top leader and player. I mean, he's been great since he's come back. What do you think, Paul? What's your words on it?
Yeah, again, I think and if you go back to that and you talk about, how did you get someone like Adam Love back to Hastings United? You go back to what I'm always going to trust in terms of relationships with players. It actually is such again, go back to being a small world and community. One of his actual best friends, who was a former Hastings player as well, Ansu Jana, who you'll probably remember.
Ansu, yeah.
But Ansu is a player that I've always been close with. I supported him actually when he was at Hastings, when he was younger. He came in and done some work with me, with my performance company that I got away from, obviously management. And then he come and played for me when I was a manager at Hastings. got on really well with Ansu and his family, still stay in touch with him now. His mum still sends my kids gifts, which is very kind. She comes to one of our games in pre-season, a Charlton game, to be fair, and sat with my family. So when you've got players speaking well of you to other players, it always helps.
Yeah.
So Ansu always spoke well of me to Dav and Adam, obviously, and Jamie, obviously, the group that came through at Hastings together. So they always knew of me. Dav, again, is a player that I always reached out to, especially when he got his injury, and just said, look, if there's any help or support you need, feel free. And then playing against him, obviously, last year when he was on loan, always got on really well, always made time. And again, just being personable. So Adam was a player that we knew was going to be a free agent in the summer. Obviously, with the Dav situation escalating, and managed to bring Dav back. Dav saying, look, Adam at the moment, isn't getting any offers at the level he wants to be at. Needs to just enjoy football again. Wants to be with good people that can help get him back to that level. He said, "Would you be interested?" Because he knows you, knows Stoney. Obviously, speak well of you, and obviously, who no manager in our league would turn around and say, "I'm not going to entertain the fact of thinking that Adam Love at that." So then it was just an honest conversation with Adam, saying, "Look, this is what we're looking to do. This is where you fit in." He was still in that process. He was still talking, or there were still clubs potentially offering him something at a higher level. And again, I think some managers sometimes push too hard and they say, "Oh no, I need to know by tomorrow, or I'm going to go and get someone else." We knew the strengths and qualities Adam had, so we was willing to be patient. We said to Adam, "Look, let us know. Just keep us in the loop if you want to have another chat." And it was brilliant because I think it was actually It was a Friday before we played on a Saturday, and I was waiting for him, and then he ran quite late, and he was like, "Can I come and sign?" He said, "Like, I spoke to a couple of others. Nobody I feel is going to be able to give me what I need. I want to enjoy my football. I believe that you can give us the environment to do that. I love the club. Can I come?" So straight away, it was a no-brainer. Nice. We made sure, and again, I think I said all the way through pre-season as well, when you're building your squad and, budget-wise, you've got to make sure that you don't overcommit, because if you go too early, you go and sign 20 players, you've got nothing to work with. So then if somebody like an Adam Lovett comes up late in the day,
you can squeeze
all of a sudden you've either got to let people down and show them that you're a liar, or you've got to, go in with your cup to the chairman and say, "We need some more money," which again is not going to happen. So from my perspective, we were quite strategic in terms of, we knew there was going to be some players coming up last minute from a higher level. We didn't know Dav and Adam were going to come up. That was a dream come true. So we worked well, built relationships, and it was good because they knew the club, and to bring someone like Adam, and he's been brilliant. Let's have it right. I think you can see when he hasn't played, we've missed him, which shows the impact that he has. And I just think, especially at the time, if anyone watched us in pre-season, and fans will probably agree with me, we just looked too open in terms of, we've got our brand of football that we want to play, but we're just too open in transition. It looked like, he could drive a bus through midfield at times. So someone like Adam, who's got that discipline side, that kind of that nasty side that gives us a bit of edge, it was exactly what we needed. And I think you've seen it from kind of, especially these opening few weeks, the balance now that him, the skipper, and Dom have given us in midfield. We've got 3 players there that have all got different skill sets and qualities that bring out the best of each other's. So and again, they're just building their connection still, because Adam didn't have a pre-season. So Adam's just getting going now. So it's exciting to have him back.
Yeah. Just talking on budgets there, just quickly, just a point that I know. Remember, Stoney's dad, who always comes on the podcast, Agent Malk comes on because he mentioned about Potter's Bar. I mean, that thing of having a budget set for the season and having a situation where, look, I'm going to get this and it's going to be consistent throughout the season. We obviously want, we're thinking a bit longer than the short term, if you get what I mean. So it's in terms of our budget currently, is that going to be, is that held across to the end of the season, or are we not going to have? Is there any chance of like that Potter's Bar sort of situation where all of a sudden the chairman says, got to cut the money because A, B, and C, and then we've got to get rid of people? I mean, have you got any assurances from like the ownership that what you've got currently will stay for the season, or?
Yeah, no,
does it work like that? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've been from one end of the spectrum to the next. I've been managing with some clubs. You got no budget. I've been some clubs and have got a really big budget, and some clubs where the budget might be a little bit
That's right.
inconsistent throughout.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're in a really good, again, it's one of the things that attracts you. What's the setup? Is it consistent? You know, the ownership have said, yep, that's your budget for the season. You work on that. I think there's always that temptation, and it's nice to know support. So, for instance, if you're there or thereabouts coming to the end of the season and you need another player to maybe you think give you that extra push, I believe that our ownership, our chairman will say, here you go, Paul, you've got our full support. I mean, I will touch on it as well I think from the outside, because everyone will maybe look at our squad as well and say, oh, they must have a good budget. In my personal opinion, knowing what other teams are paying and what people's objectives are this year, and people they'll probably call me a liar, or they might fall off their chairs when I say, but if I was to place us in a table of what our budget is, I would probably put us mid-table with our budget. And that's not trying to make us look better or worse or anything. But I would just say, from knowing what budgets are in leagues below, I would probably place us as a mid-table side in terms of our budget. So, you know, people would then say, oh, wow, you know, if you're doing that on a bit. But again, I think you go back to it. I always say that the value of a budget isn't in so much what you can pay, is what you can offer. And I think the value of our budget is the environment that we're creating. It's the club. You know, everyone wants to play in front of over 1,000 fans. You know, everyone wants to be in a club that the fans are brilliant in terms of they support you. You know, it's got that togetherness. It's an actual football club. Whereas, and again, it's not being disrespectful to other clubs, but some other teams might have bigger budgets, but they can only offer money. Whereas if you can offer a good environment with good people in a proper football club, straight away for me, that gives you that extra. And to be honest, it's testament to the group we got, because we haven't got boys that are here chasing money. We've got boys that are willing to accept their value within our budget, because they know beyond that they're getting access to good people, professional environment, and a great football club that's well supported.
What is Femi's goal bonus though? I mean, he's what are you giving him? I don't really want to know what you're giving him, but you get what I mean, like, because he's been cracking, hasn't he?
He's superb. And I think, you know, even when we spoke in kind of the off season, and we were making our short list of who kind of is our ideal number 9, and kind of Femi was at the top of the list. And people always say, oh, maybe his goal return wasn't great last season, but you always again take into consideration environment, team style of play. We always knew in terms of how we play would be perfect. As a lad, and I can't speak highly enough of him, as a person, he's one of the most infectious, positive people that I've met. He's brilliant to have around the place. In terms of when you talk about bonuses and stuff, you know, you take, and I would always, I think your main number 9, somebody like a Femi, you take him with a goal bonus, knowing that you want to pay him that every week.
Oh yeah.
You know, so in theory, even though you're offering it as a bonus, you tie it into what his weekly wage would be. And then if he doesn't score, you say, what's going on? And again, you know, from somebody like Femi standards, you know, he's absolutely gutted. Obviously, he wants us to win, but he wants to be scoring every week. He wants to be the top goal scorer in the league. So it gives you a bit of an insight what he's all about and what he's here to do. But he's been brilliant. I can't speak highly enough of him as a person and as a player, what he's brought to the club. Yeah,
I mean, that was a big thing I noticed. I mean, we've got a couple of questions left, but like we go to, like, from what the highlights I saw from our game against Lewis, you know, Femi was making noise and Adam was making noise. I mean, which was good. It's good to see. I mean, there wasn't much else good to see in those highlights, but you know, we can all have a bad day, can't we, Paul? That was that's not going to happen next week, is it?
No, but I think, I mean, just to give you a bit of an insight as well. So, you know, good relationship with all the players, and I take it all the time is, if players want to talk to you after the game and they want to know kind of, where do you think I did do well, or where could I have done better? You know, they care straight away, which is the most important thing. You want players to care. And kind of, I'll say exactly what I've said to players on the phone this week after the game on Lewis is, we all know that nobody can come out of Tuesday saying that they were good. You know, and I said it in the change room as well. That's management and players included. You know, we're a collective. We win and lose together. So from my perspective, we were all below standards on Tuesday. You know, everybody knows that if we put in those kind of performance more often than not, we're not going to be in a position we want to be in. So, you know, we know that it wasn't a great day at the office, but we've got to make sure that, we bounce back quickly from a game like performance like that. Okay.
Well, going from that, let's talk about one that you would have loved, which was that great away day at Dulwich. You know, going back to a club that obviously, well, I think harshly let you go, but I mean, as a supporter, I loved it. But tell me, what was your feelings about it, Paul?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was very happy on my way home after the game. Just obviously going back to a former employer and getting one up. But I think more so in terms of the way that we won. Because again, I think it will be quite well known that that maybe the hand that I was dealt at Dulwich, it was a little bit of one hand tied behind your back because it was a squad that obviously I didn't put together. I love the lads that played for me and made some good relationships, but ultimately it wasn't the squad I put together. Did as best as we could. If I was to go back, yeah, maybe we might have done a couple of things a bit differently, but ultimately did get a chance to build our own team and do it our way. So then to be able to go back with Hastings, with a group that we've been allowed to build, with a philosophy that we've implemented. And I think I had so many Dulwich fans, they give me a nice standing ovation on the way off, which was lovely. And even coming to speak to me after the game and say, your team was brilliant today. You thoroughly deserve to win. If you look at it and people asked me afterwards, they said, how was it? I said, look, if we won 3 or 4-1, I don't think it would have been, unjust because we were good. We played some good football. We had a goal to allow. We missed the penalty. So I thought, no, it was really nice to go back there. It was good to see some people that we saw in the day, supporters, because I never got a chance to really see them before. Obviously, I left and they was always brilliant with me. So yeah, going back there, yeah, it was a really good, and for the club, obviously great day out for the club. The support was brilliant. The amount of people that travelled was a great day. I mean, I got some great pictures. I know players talk about, and they'll get stuck into Scott White, who's brilliant in terms of capturing those moments. And I'll talk to Scott all the time. But I do, I keep pictures from a match day. I think when I went along the line of supporters as we do, there's some really good pictures of me embracing some of the fans, some high fives. I got sent a couple of videos online. They'll stay in the library forever, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, it's that Ben Bennett. See, he gets himself in all the pictures. I know. There's at least a few with him with you. See, you got to watch him. He's got.
So I'll make sure I just find him because if he knows where the camera is, I'll know I'll keep getting good shots.
Yeah, no, definitely Ben knows where the camera is. That's true. Okay, right. Last question from Pete, and it is, yeah. So, what player has exceeded expectations so early in the season? Anyone in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. I've got one in my mind that jumps straight out, and it would be the right back Sam McCoy. I think if anyone's watched performances, and just to give everyone an insight, so spoke to Sam in the off season, invited him a chance to come in and be a trialist through pre-season to show that he was potentially a kind of that modern fullback that I was looking at that could do certain things. I think if you looked at maybe his first 2 performances and we spoke to Sam, he looked still a little bit nervy, a little bit shaky when the season kicked off. Since Dulwich, and it was definitely the Dulwich game where, again, you talk through some of the teams that you would expect to be there or thereabouts coming in, and Dulwich you would say would be one. You look at then the wingers or attacking players that they're going to pose a threat. So you look at people like Luke Winadio, Andy Jeffrey that was playing. I think they had Richard Pinglin playing. So straight away, you look at Sam and say, look, these are the games where you'll play against some of the best attacking players in the league. This is where you build your reputation. And I thought he was brilliant on that day. And since then, he's been superb. I think you look at the Erith Belvedere Cup games, where again, for me, one of the biggest talents in non-league football, Josh Ajay, is there, and he's potentially a football league player. And on his day, I've seen him absolutely rip defenders to shreds. Whereas I can't remember him getting a kick against us in both games because Sam marked him out the game. You then go, and even people might say Lewis on Tuesday where we didn't do well, but Calvin, who was with me at Dulwich last year, again is a football league player when he's at it. Their goals didn't come through Calvin. I can't remember Calvin getting the better of him. So yeah, I would say Sam McCoy. I think coming in as a trialist to now establish yourself and kind of set the standard of performance he has. And he's still going to get better because he's still only 21. He's still learning, and he's been very, very complimentary in terms of enjoying the environment of being coached, helping people understand his game. So the more he takes that on board and he grows, he's only going to get better because he's a great athlete and he's a great lad. Okay,
well, thanks for that, Paul. We've got Havant and Waterlooville on Friday, Paul. Now, this is going to come out afterwards, so you're not going to give anything away. Are we going to be putting in our 23s there, a mix some of the squad players, or what are we doing?
No, I think in terms of where we're at, I mean, again, speaking to players after the Lewis game, I think it's time that we just reevaluate, have a little look at obviously making sure we don't lose sight of our style. We want to make sure we're playing that possession-based football, but maybe just look at a couple of tweaks. So we're looking at maybe changing formation, having a little look at a different approach for those two games, utilising the whole squad. So you'll see 2 11s on Friday in the friendly, and then come Three Bridges. We'll be looking at trying to fine tune going into the FA Trophy game on Kingstonian, because what we have said is as well as we've started, and I think anybody, even supporters, we're looking at, you could probably pick the 11 after the first few games because boys were playing so well. Whereas now, where a few have just tailed off and performances have dropped, I think it's more of a level playing field. So there's places up for grabs. So now this is where you're looking for, again, you go back to the squad depth. Who's pushing to go and take a shirt for Kingstonian in the trophy? And the only boys that are going to be able to do that are the boys that go and put in a performance on Friday and then on Tuesday against Three Bridges. We know connection with the fans. Sussex County Cup, people normally will say, oh yeah, it's just another cup. But it's not another cup competition for us. We want to go and win. We want to go on a good run. It's one where there's potential chance of silverware. So from our perspective, we're making sure we find a balance. So it will be a mixture of boys that we might feel need minutes, but ultimately what we want to fine tune towards the Kingstonian game on the 7th.
Okay, thank you. Well, Paul, thanks so much for your time. I will see you at the game, sir. So take care and have a lovely day. All right.
Thank you very much for having me, Chris.
Cheers, Paul, mate.